You know, it's not just a one-hit school. This is a school for communities.
The school had a huge spirit here where everybody worked together and fought together basically to make sure they got the best of life.
We always used to take pride in what we could do for our young men, and that made me very happy.
We very much became almost like a family in a strange sense. It was such a small school that everybody knew everybody.
Just seeing their faces, seeing mountains, seeing lakes, playing rugby against a team who don't speak English. I hope that is a life experience that they'll live with for the rest of their lives, and it certainly will with me.
All my teaching still now is based upon that feeling that I had when I was here, that I was making a difference.
I have a lot to thank him for because he did allow me to do sport, and also he got me to the school.
It's helped me grow as a person, and it's helped me to believe in myself more, I suppose, and that I can do things.
It was quite an amazing place to be.
It's just really weird being sat in this hall again after all these years. I'm just keep waiting for the teacher to go on the stage. It's true. I'm sat here thinking I better behave myself a minute in case the teachers come up. And that's how it's like going back in time. Well, I was in my brother's hand-me-down school stuff. So my stuff was grey and everybody else's was jet black. And I just thought, I felt so small and the school was so big, do you know what I mean? And after being in the school for a couple of hours, you feel a lot better. Still a bit nervous, but you felt a lot better. And that's always stayed with me. It's funny how big the school was. This was the sort of school that never mollycoddled you, but it would never allow you to stand on your own, if you know what I mean. This was a strict school when I came here, but it was also a fair school, you know. And if you needed, not comfort, that would be the wrong word, but if you needed a nudge in the right direction, then you got it. And they certainly made you ready for the world outside school.
The school had a huge spirit here where everybody worked together and fought together basically to make sure they got the best of life. We used to have a more vocational education at the time here, and it wasn't all academic issues all the time. We had the motor mechanics workshop here where you learnt to repair cars, build cars and do all that sort of work. There's also a huge garden area here. Allotments were here, and the boys learnt to actually propagate and grow plants at school. So we learnt about life as well as education, which is a very useful start in life.
I was in the careers office, he said, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be a vet." And he went, not a chance, and he was right, because I never took any of the exams. And they said I would never amount to much. So I became a Baines councillor, in charge of an £8 million portfolio. I'm deputy leader of our group on the council. I'm also chair of our group on the council. I own my own house. I've got a nice car. So, I mean, they give you, I was career teachers, didn't know nothing, but the school gave me the foundation.
It helped me learn the boundaries and how to work through life, literally, to make sure I achieved the best I possibly could, myself, my family, and to work towards where I've got to today. And I think I've done most things in life. I've achieved being Mayor of Bath, I've been chairman of the council, deputy leader of council, and so I've actually done something with my life, and it started here.
Fred Leese was the PE teacher, and he was a very, very strict PE teacher. We used to have the big ropes hanging from the ceiling, and I could get about halfway up, I could never get to the top. And we were doing this PE lesson. I tried all this PE lesson to get to the top, and he knew I was trying, but he was still shouting at me, because that was his job. His boss said, "Come on, Hedges, you can do it," and I couldn't. So he said to me, "You're not going to your next lesson. He said, I'm going to have a word with your teacher." I said, "Oh, okay." So it was just me and him in the gym, and he must have been in his early 50s then. And he climbed up the rope and he said, "This is how to do it." And he climbed back down again. And he said, "You climb that rope and I'll climb this rope." And he climbed up the ropes and I got to the top. And he said, "There you are, never give up." And that's always stuck with me throughout my life. I've taught my kids that, if you fail, you fail. I will never go, but never give up.
It was generally really good. I came up from Newbridge with quite a few other boys from that school, so I had a good group of friends here, and then I think fairly quickly made some other new friends by being involved in activities like school council and the choir, and and they've stayed really, a lot of those friends up until now, so a long time. And I just got on well. I liked a lot of the teachers here, and I think did as many extra curricular activities as I could, and most of the time enjoyed myself.
Some of my best friends are from Culverhay, so people I went to school with I see every week. My best man I met at Culverhay. I play football with friends from Culverhay. So that's really significant that my best friends are from this special school. I think other big memories are the very long walks to school. It took me an hour from Newbridge all the way up to the top of Rushill, and on the way we'd pick up friends. We'd spend all of our pocket money on Mount Road, can of Coke and a pasty, no money left for dinners. And walking home, we'd play knockout ginger and garden hopping and other not illegal but slightly naughty pranks. Culverhay wasn't always idyllic. Certainly the early years were relatively challenging, so I think the social mix at Culverhay was really different to the primary school I went to, and so it did teach me to kind of hold my own, and even though I was one of the more academic kids, that I shouldn't be ashamed of that, even if that wasn't what other kids kind of respected. So yeah, it taught me a bit of resilience. In terms of my theatre career, so I worked in theatre for over a decade, and it was in this hall that I first performed in a kind of a musical. So my friend Will was auditioning on that stage there, and I was on the balcony taking the mick out of him, and then the music teacher said I had to come down and audition, and so I did, and I got the part of the Artful Dodger. And which is appropriate for the kid on the balcony taking the mick out of the other kid. Then I started getting involved in lots of other musical theatre. I've worked in theatre at the Theatre Hall in Bath, and at the National Theatre, and at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and that all came from teachers who were choosing to do musicals. That wasn't part of the curriculum. That was Mrs. Galton, I think it was, who was just doing it off her own back. And so that was very transformative. The other two opportunities that I had at Culverhay that feel important to talk about is that my passion for English came from Mrs. Chorley, who I can't spell particularly well. Don't think I'm dyslexic, but I can't spell very well. But she was always really inspiring in terms of encouraging me with my written work and kind of seeing the passion that I had. And that led to me doing a degree. So that was in English, that was really formative. I also really remember an English lesson with Mike Fair, where he made us learn Shakespeare, stood up and I read a speech from Macbeth, and that again was really defining for me in terms of connecting with that and feeling really excited by this language, and ended up working for the Royal Shakespeare Company. So yeah, it feels very clear how the opportunities I've had were informed by teachers that inspired me.
I think that having really good friends, and I think it was a sort of atmosphere probably fostered by the teachers as well. Certainly as you got older through the school and you started to see the teachers as human beings, as adults who actually weren't that dissimilar to you, then those bonds became really important. And I think in my year group, there was only 17 when we went on to sixth form, roughly, A-levels. We all pushed each other on, most of the time encouraged each other, and I think we were quite a creative bunch. Had some great friends who, inspiring people, and together with the teachers that had a great influence on pushing you on a lot of the time.
I left here in 1998. I went to university for 4 years. At the end of university, I went travelling. I went to Australia to play cricket. And I came back in the December of 2003, had a phone call from a guy called Andrew Camp, who was actually my geography teacher and my form tutor. He said, "Mark, we need somebody to do a day supply." So I came here December 2003 to do a day supply and haven't ever left. I would always say it's one large family. You've got institutions like Andrew McNee, who's been an ever-presence in my life since I was 11, and I felt it might be a bit awkward for the likes of him and Sarah Wallin and Jeremy Robertson and Lee Bailey and Steve Hewitt, people like who taught me. Would they be a bit funny with me in the staff room? And that, you know what, they've been so professional with me. They welcomed me in 2003, and I've become really good friends with a lot of them.
Well, quite often they talk about the Culverhay way. You might have heard other members of staff talking about it, and I've taught in a lot of schools since, and there is a special feeling here, I think, because we're small, because we were all boys. There was a particular atmosphere to the place. Staff are lovely. Every single member of staff I worked with, I got on with really well and really enjoyed working with, and we were very supportive of each other. So often you'd go into the staff room, there might be a bit of moaning, but there'd also be a lot of laughter as well. The boys were interesting, but teenagers always are. They're the most interesting people to work with, but also the most infuriating. So it was a good combination of the two. And I have very happy memories of the young men that I worked with. I enjoyed trying to teach them history and RE. I think some things they might have remembered, some things they might not have done. But the thing I loved most was all the extracurricular activities and the opportunities we gave to our young men to kind of turn them into rounded human beings. So we took a group of students to Brunel's Bristol and went to the Suspension Bridge and to the SS Great Britain. Taking a group of students to the First World War battlefields in France, and being really impressed at how respectful our young men were when we went to the Menin Gate. Every night there's a last post played at 8 o'clock, and our young men were just brilliant, respectful, taking it all in, absorbing it, understanding it, and just being brilliant, and planting the wood, for the Victory Wood. I think that was my first year. Those kind of things. We always used to take pride in what we could do for our young men, and that made me very happy.
I think the individual care here, because we are small, is superb. We know every child. I know every child's name in the school. And I just think that is really nice of them, that they know that we genuinely care for them and we want the best for them. And I often talk to my GCSE classes. I've got a phrase, don't let your circumstance determine your future. And I love seeing the children who don't let their circumstance determine their future. The guys who go on to university or go on to get apprenticeships or go on to get great jobs. And when I see them in the street, I always have such positive interactions with them. And I love seeing ex-pupils. And if I'm going to go into town now for a coffee, I'm bound to bump into a few. And that is the nice part of the job. One of my finest achievements, or one of the things that I will look back on and say, that was great. I took 28 boys to Italy on rugby tour, to Verona, around the shores of Lake Garda, and taking 28 boys from this area, many of whom have never been on a plane before, to Italy, and just seeing their faces, seeing mountains, seeing lakes, playing rugby against a team who don't speak English. I know, well, I hope that is a life experience that they'll live with for the rest of their lives, and it certainly will with me.
I was lucky enough to meet my wife here. She'd been teaching here for just over a year when I arrived, and I'm fairly certain that when she first encountered me, shall we say, in school, she thought I was a bit of a prat. Should we go for that? Can we say that on camera? But I won her round, sure, and we managed to keep it relatively quiet for a year. And then we got engaged, and that kind of let the cat out of the bag. And 24 years later, 26 years later from our first date, 24 from when we got married, we're still deliriously happy.
Mr. Robertson turned up, and I'll be honest, I didn't like him. I wasn't very impressed. We used to have something called care committee at lunchtimes where we would talk about children that we had concerns about. And I can remember him at one of these meetings, and he really grated on me, and I was thinking, this man just will not shut up. He's talking the whole time. And he really annoyed me. But gradually, I guess his persistence sort of wore me down a little bit, plus a little bit of Mrs. Gum as well. We went out for a staff meal, and Mrs. Gum sort of played Cupid a little bit. And yeah, I don't really know what happened. He persisted, and I sort of gave in, and eventually, yeah.
I'm sure I'm not going to be the only person to say that community was kind of the great thing. That there were the staff. The staff room was a real hub. People were there at break time, there at lunchtime. We helped each other, we supported each other, but also with the pupils. There are a number of pupils who I taught in my time here, who I'm still friends with now. I would say, whether from all years, right from my first time, and you can walk through the city, and someone will come up to you and say, "Oh, hello, do you remember me?" And you kind of take 5 minutes to remember their name, but you get there in the end. So.
All my teaching still now is based upon that feeling that I had when I was here, that I was making a difference, and even the little things that happened, they meant so much. The class that I had for GCSE, I taught Wes, and in his GCSE speaking, he used un sandwicho, and I think un bago in part of his speaking. Just thought an English word with an O on the end would be fine, and I will remember that for the rest of my days. And I teach now, and I say to my students, don't do a Wes. Got such huge job satisfaction of teaching the Culverhay boys, and it's taught me all that I know, and I still carry on the same way even in the private sector.
After my first placement, which was at Culverhay School, up until Christmas, I then went to do another placement in an independent school nearby. And so I got really sort of two ends of the spectrum, really, and both were thoroughly enjoyable. Well, job opportunities came up at both, and I thought, which one should I go for? Which should I interview for? And actually, there's only ever going to be one choice, and that was Culverhay, because whilst the other school was nice, there was just something about the place that I really enjoyed, the staff, the teachers, the students as well. And so I didn't even apply for the other one. I put all my eggs into the one basket, and thankfully I got the job. I pulled up in the car park, in my car, and as I was just sort of reversing into my space, I had a huge crash. So I looked out the window up onto the roof of the car, and a football just being kicked from the other side of the playground, and just landed smack on the top of the car. And it brought a huge smile to my face, and the boys kind of ran round and sort of grabbed the ball and ran off again. And I thought, yeah, definitely a place for me. Just had that feeling. So rather than scare me off, actually, my heart warmed even more to the school.
It was quite an amazing place to be as a woman. There were a few of us. There was a sisterhood, but not too many. And the department that I worked in was a technology department, so I was the only woman in that department. But they were all just so welcoming and so much fun. I'm quite short, so one of the first things that they did when I arrived at the school and complained about the height of the whiteboard, they made me a little step, sort of about so big, so I could stand on the step and reach the whiteboard. And from the front, it looked absolutely just like a step. But as I moved it back to sort of put it into position, the lads from the technology department had very helpfully written short-ass designs on the back of it. But the children never knew that, so that was my step. I loved it here. It was very hard work, very rewarding, but we made friends for life when we came here.
It's always felt like a community. We obviously do we've done the cow services in the Abbey for X amount of years, and that's a massive community event every year. And yeah, it is a community, staff and students. If we get external visitors in, quite often, students reflect to say how well they feel cared for here by the staff. So yeah, community is just the one word that sticks into my head.
I think because we were small, it was always every pupil counts. It was very much a case of that. You could get to know your classes, and whether you were the high flyers or whether you were the weakest pupils, we would make time for you and we would go out of our way to try and support you. And I think that was always a really good thing, because I can think of a number of pupils who maybe if they'd gone to a larger school, they would have got a bit swamped. But for us, we managed to push them on. They went to university, which quite possibly they'd never considered previously. I always felt that the extracurricular things were almost more important than what went on in the lessons. For a number of the pupils, taking them to other countries, it was the only opportunities that they had. And, this really kind of broadened their horizons. And that's really what I wanted to do, and I think the school wanted to do. We wanted to give pupils the chance to do that. So whether it was activities weeks or the foreign trips. I remember I took, during one of our activities weeks, I took 2 boys up to Bolton Wanderers ground to see Coldplay. And that's the sort of thing we could do. So, and it was giving them life chances, both in education and extracurricular, that they maybe wouldn't have had otherwise.
We organised little trips on a shoestring budget to random places in Europe. Me and Jeremy would look at a map or say to each other, where do we fancy going next? And it was mainly selfish and personal reasons that we chose certain places like Milan, but we had the most fantastic times. I've got a big photo album. When I left, I got a big photo album that had all the best photos from my trips that we went on, and I think it just helped the boys open their minds to the world and European cities and get them out of school. And it was wonderful, really wonderful opportunities. Learning in a classroom is a really small part of language, and I think wherever we took them, it didn't matter that it wasn't a Spanish-speaking or a French-speaking country, because it was that experience of getting on a plane and the excitement, and some of them didn't have a passport before they went, so they had to get a passport and earn some pocket money and do well at school in order to have some financial help from their parents. And just being independent abroad, we'd give them some time off to go shopping or go out and about, and I think that really taught them just about life in general. And a bit more independence away from the parents and seeing teachers in a different light, because we weren't in the classroom. So I think it's invaluable. I'm hoping they remember those trips forever too.
I started here in 1985, which seems a long time ago now. It's 33 years. And when we started, the school was quite a hard school to teach at to start with. It was on 3 sites. It was hard also in another way, because when we had to teach at the lower school, which is down the hollow, and also up here. And if you had to do an extra cover lesson just before break time, I cycled to school. So I had to cycle down to the Hollow and then cycle all the way back during break time before I started my next lesson. So that was actually quite difficult at times. The students were respectful. There was never any fights for the first 10 years that I was here, but it was hard because there was a lack of parental support at home, very difficult to get homework in, and we were pushing and pushing. And that was in the early days, during the 80s, early 90s or so. This last year, I've been doing Duke of Edinburgh with the students here. All right. Now, the students really didn't know anything about Duke of Edinburgh, didn't really want to play ball with it, didn't really want to go with it. Now, in most other schools, it will cost you between £80 and £300 in order to do Duke of Edinburgh as an extra. So we couldn't ask the students to pay for that. But as it was the last year, we thought it was a good idea to let all of the Year 9 students enrol for Duke of Edinburgh. Now that means a lot of work outside of the classroom. So at home they had to do a skill, they had to do a physical activity for 3 months or 6 months in order to do it. And because they also didn't pay for it, they didn't have the financial commitment to it either. So they weren't that bothered and they didn't have the financial commitment. So a lot of cajoling, a lot of, yeah, come on, let's go with this and do that. Actually, in the end, at the end of the whole time, 37 of the 49 of those students actually passed the Duke of Edinburgh. Now, of those 37 that were actually going off there to Mendip, only 2 of them had ever been to Mendip before. And Mendip is only 10 miles away going down there. They'd never ever been there before. So we're trying to push the boundaries with some of these students. We're trying to give them confidence. Most of them hadn't camped. I've been doing the 10 tours for 33 years as well, which is down on Dartmoor. To be able to do a 2-day event whereby you're walking across the 10 tours, 35 miles, as the crow flies that is, so it's 40, 45 miles or so. You know, that is, and they finished it, all 6 of them finished it this year, and it's the youngest ever team we've had from here.
The overall feeling I get when I think about Culverhay is that we very much became almost like a family in a strange sense. It was such a small school that everybody knew everybody, and so you'd walk around and have a chat with whoever. But some of the sort of the big memories that reinforced that was one time we went off to Holland and on a sort of exchange trip. And me and Mr. McNee and Miss Hurst, I think it was, we had a canoe race that we had to do. And me and Mr. McNee and Miss Hurst, we got together and we were like, right, we're going to do a canoe, we'll do one together and we'll beat all the rest of them. We were determined to do it. So we set off and we were going pretty quick, we were going good. We got in front of everybody, but we were going so fast that the finish line wasn't set up in time. So we continued on for ages and ages, and I literally started distributing out snacks to them. And it was a learning experience for me, especially because I wasn't sort of necessarily thinking of them as my teacher as much. They were like, oh, you know, it's my mates, because we're like heading off now. And in the end, it resulted in us knocking on some guy's boat, waking him up and being like, Leerdam, how far, kind of thing. And he was like, oh, it's like miles away. And so in the end, we had to turn back, and it turned out we were so quick that everyone else had already finished, and they didn't even know where we were. So yeah, and then after that we had to do a bike ride. So yeah, it was definitely strange. I've never had an experience like that before, but yeah. So those sort of things, those memories, reinforced to me that it was like a family, that we were sort of all on the same team and everyone knew everybody.
Well, the teacher who inspired me the most was Duncan Fleet. Duncan Fleet was the head teacher here from about 2005. He unfortunately passed away from cancer, probably about 2008, 2009, around that time. I was in year 9. It was announced in front of quite a few people in our assembly. It was quite a heartbreaking time, but there was good things. He was quite a chilled head teacher. It was quite nice. He taught me how to play rugby, which I found incredible. I was skinny, so for me to play a physical sport like that was very, very good. So I have a lot to thank him for, because he did allow me to do sport, and also he got me to the school. He was the one that, you know, ultimately made my decision for me to come to Culverhay. So I thank him 10 times over.
I got something through the post, and it was like this little like cardboard pull-out thing, and it said that you'd been chosen to be a torchbearer for the work on with the school and being head boy and doing these different things, different bits and pieces. And it was crazy. It was mental. It's something you can't really think of. You don't think you're ever going to get the chance to do that kind of thing. And it's a very proud moment to learn that you're being asked to do that kind of thing. And you feel like, oh God, do you really deserve to do this kind of thing based on a lot of things other people have done? And it was crazy. I was chosen by Coca-Cola to run with the torch for them. So the day came, and I think it was the 26th of May in 2012, and went up to the University of Bath, where we were all starting from, with people like Jason Gardner, world record, 100-metre runner, and loads of different people who've done loads of things in the community and stuff, and everyone was together. It was such a great atmosphere to be around those people. Those people were just excited to be where they are. And going out onto the road with the torch, and you get to take it away with you afterwards, is great. And the crowds across Bath, it was 3 or 4, 5 deep across the whole of the city. I couldn't believe how much it kind of taken to people, this whole experience. So it was an immense experience, and to be a part of that, and to be able to run with that torch and have those people kind of cheering you on and running down there and thinking about what you've done. And at that point as well, we kind of knew that the school had been saved as well. So it was kind of a nice finish to that rounded experience of, you've done what you set out to achieve to do, and now you've got this reward at the end of it, knowing that you've succeeded in what you achieved to do. It was just a nice day overall, and it really kind of encapsulated what was great about being part of the school and the opportunities really that it gave me to succeed. It was just a whirlwind year of doing things that are ridiculous and fantastic, and it's probably been one of the defining years probably of my life so far, that year of doing all those different things and learning from those experiences. It was such an amazing time.
I look back on my time at this school and I feel really proud to say that I came here. I made some amazing friends, lifelong friends, and I learned so much about what I love doing, which is filmmaking, but also about myself. And coming here enabled me to go on to study film at university, and because I made that choice to go to university, I've now got my own video production company, and I'm making films that really matter, stories that really matter, and I owe that all to this school.
Starting was incredible because I was 100% correct about the passion and the loyalty and the commitment of the staff. I was 100% correct about the fierce loyalty from the students who were in the building. Really proud of the fact that Culverhay was remaining open as Bath Community Academy. And I think they were pretty stoked with the new uniforms and the new branding and all that kind of stuff, and some new faces to try and give it a little bit of momentum. And but yeah, I had to earn it. The students here, I think, are absolutely awesome, and over the past 6 years, I just think the world of all of them.
When I first came here, I was really excited, but then I was a bit nervous because I didn't know anybody here. But obviously I had my brother here as well. So it was really fun. And I went to lessons and the teachers were really nice. And I went into the wrong maths class on my first day and I got really embarrassed about it. I love the school because all the teachers are really nice and they don't really shout a lot, and we do really fun lessons.
It's kind of like a little family and community because there's so little people here, and everyone knows each other and everyone's there to support each other. And I suppose it's different to a bigger school because it's not, everyone is tightly knit and no one feels alone, I suppose, because you can always go to somebody. We've had a lot of opportunities that I suppose you wouldn't get in another school because it's so small and you get to do more things because there's more time to do it. And I think we've had a lot of opportunities to go to like Spa University and Bath University, and we've had different people come in to talk about careers and stuff, which has really helped because it shows that it helps you expand your ideas of what you want to do.
What I love about being at BCA and coming here is, well, everything really. When it comes to lessons, I love being in there in my class, right through to being with my teachers and seeing all the students on a day-to-day basis. The way BCA has helped me, I think, is because I have cerebral palsy, and I think they've really supported me and they've really adapted a lot.
It's always been a very pastoral school in terms of looking after every one of its pupils, and I think that has been a fantastic role model, and we've had some great successes with kids coming out of here. A lot of imagination and a lot of will, and a lot of kids progressing well from that pastoral care they got, which they perhaps wouldn't have got in other schools.
Each year the kids are coming in, and I'm noticing that our intake is becoming heavily specialised towards students with educational health care plans or special educational needs. Because we include those kids, because the way we teach those kids, getting the kids into the school and integrating them into the lesson, you know, we're not treating them like second-class people. And we work really hard to raise results, and we had some fantastic years of results, some really good stories coming out of individual successes. But ultimately, it's just not translating into the numbers coming in. You know, and eventually you have to the decision is reached that it's just not sustainable financially. And I don't know what that says. You know, when you turn around and you say a school is no longer financially viable. Is this something to do with a change in how communities and how this country works? Do small communities still have a future in this type of society? You know, it's an economically challenged country. There's a lot of difficulties, a lot of hardship, and it's just not enough money to keep a small school like ours up on the hill where we care for the students, we look after them, put a lot of work into what they do. For me, the legacy of Bath Community Academy, Culverhay, it is what it is. It's community. We have a saying here at BCA, Team BCA, real simple. And what that basically means is if I'm telling the students, if I'm informing them of some new expectation around mobile phones or uniform, I will say to them, we can do this because we're Team BCA, we're all in this together. It's something I say to the staff, it's a lovely rallying cry. And judging from the interest and some of the communication I've received from ex-students of Culverhay, I'm pretty certain that commitment to community endured back then too. And there's a fierce loyalty here, and between the staff, between the students, between parents that come and talk to us and that. And it's pretty unique and it's pretty special. I've not come across an environment like this before, where I felt like after 2 or 3 weeks, you know, I'd been teaching for what, 10, 13 years, something like that. And after 2 weeks, I thought, my gosh, it's like being a PGCE student again, you know, kids locking me out of my class and all that. I was not having that. So I had to change the way I do things. I earn the students' respect just by working hard, being for them 100% all the time. And I look around at my staff team today, you know, the people in this building now, and I'd say that's true with all of them.
That's why this school is a family. It's part of people's families, is because not only the parents have been here, like they've been here when it's Westhill, when it's Culverhay, when it's even BCA, but it's our children that have come from the school as well, so it's generational.
Reputation is important for, I think, for all society, and particularly in Bath, there's if a reputation precedes you, then that goes a long way to convincing someone or a group of people to either follow that particular train of thought or else. And I think that Culverhay and BC had a really outstanding reputation, but only for those people that actually came in through those front doors and actually experienced what it was to be at BCA, at Culverhay School. Many of the schools in the area have good and outstanding Ofsted ratings and have exceptional reputations. And the number of people that came to school on open evenings, or we had an open day every day policy at BCA. And when people actually came in to judge for themselves, it didn't become a surprise in the end, because the same response came. I had no idea, I didn't realise. But we all did ourselves, and I think it's difficult, certainly we found it difficult to shift the perception among the wider community. But to a point it didn't actually matter, because we knew what we were doing and how special that was. And like I said, that goes to show so many staff that have stayed for so long, because why would you go anywhere else when you enjoy your work so much in one place?
As someone that's grown up in Bath and works with children and young people in Bath, I think it's very clear that the closure of a school like this is not in the best interests of our community. I don't think that the current funding formula understands or allows for communities like this to create the schools that are best for their local young people. So I think it's really clear it's not a good idea. I think we need small schools because the best education is child-centred. And without BCA, we will be reduced to one small secondary school in this city, which is going to get bigger. And I think that's a shame.
The class sizes are really small. So it's like my smallest class of 2 people, and my biggest is about 20. So obviously you kind of get a lot of one-to-one time with a teacher, which really helps me because I'm dyslexic. So I use that support has been really helpful to me over the past 5 years, because it's helped me grow as a person, and it's helped me to believe in myself more, I suppose, and that I can do things.